Hello, I'm Bob Rose. Welcome to this tutorial on Chala Head Chala from Dragon Ball Z. I hope I've said that correctly. It's from the new Trinity Grade 8 2023 syllabus. My goodness, there's not much musical depth to this piece. If I'm really generous, it's like, this is like Queen, like Don't Stop Me Now or something like that. But that's without even so, more musical substance than this. But anyway, I have made a performance of this for YouTube, a performance video. So check out the link above and in the description below. You can see me play it. Also, if you are learning this and you're watching this video to get some pointers, I do recommend have the book open in front of you so that you can follow along as I point out all the various bar numbers. So there's, I think, really not an awful lot to say about it, other than it has some quite tricky things that are out of proportion difficult compared to everything else that's around it. One thing that's probably going to be quite tricky is the left hand. So when you've got things like the bottom note repeated, ba, 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 da, 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 I don't recommend playing that with two different fingers. You're just going to need the little finger twice. So it's absolutely essential, not just in the left hand, but in the right hand as well. Like, actually, no, yeah, there are places in the right hand where you're going to need this, which is like a wrist staccato. So for example, let's take the top of this page. So bar 46, if we go. So here, bam, ba, ba, da, 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 da. Here, to go from the G to the A chord, you're going to want to go ba 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 with your wrist like this. So basically, I find that a lot of people find wrist staccato very, very difficult, but almost everybody knows how to dribble a basketball. I have had students who literally have not known what a basketball is, because I teach in England. Not everyone has played basketball, but you know, if you imagine, for people who know what a basketball is and have felt one, you know, you imagine, how do you dribble a basketball really close to the ground? And as you get close to the ground, you intuitively, everyone intuitively knows who's done this. You don't move your whole arm. Your whole arm, it's just impossible. You move your wrist. So I might bounce a ball from up here, from chest height, with my whole arm. And as I get lower and lower, it's still from the arm. But as I get lower and lower and lower, it starts to turn more into very relaxed wrist movements, not from the arm. So it sort of becomes more like, oh, you won't be able to see this. So let's say that let's say this book is the floor, and I'm dribbling the basketball. It's going to look like this. It's going to look like, because if I try and do it with my whole arm and my wrist isn't moving, that's impossible. No one will ever be able to dribble a basketball. I encourage you right now, wherever you're watching, just imagine bouncing a basketball and imagine bouncing it right by the ground. You'll realize that your wrist automatically does this. And yet, now the other thing as well is it's way more difficult with your non-dominant hand, which for most of us is going to be our left hand. I'm right-handed, so I find left hand wrist staccato much more difficult. But still, if you imagined bouncing a basketball, you could kind of do it with, you could kind of dribble with your left hand. It'd be more difficult, but you'd know what to do. You wouldn't just tense up your whole arm and try and use your whole arm to do it. So what I recommend, and this is something that really works very, very powerfully for my students, but you have to do this. And most of my students just don't do this. They hear the words and they don't go and do it. So let's just take the first two notes in the left hand in bar 2, which are just basically the left hand twice. So imagine, well, don't imagine. So basically we play, hopefully you can see my wrist from there. Hopefully the microphone isn't in the way. So you want something like this. Your wrist is straight. Now, can you pull your wrist up so it makes a right angle like this? So right angle up, back down, right angle up, back down. And you want to do this with this note, right angle, wrist up, down, like this. And just in case you can't see it, I'm doing this with my little finger landing. I'm not playing. My little finger isn't doing anything. My little finger is just ready to play, and it just then plays like that. Do not pull with your little finger when you arrive. There isn't a single part of your finger that moves when you actually get there. It's all from the wrist. And then what I encourage is, over even weeks, you might need to do this over weeks, just get your nervous system used to this extreme exaggerated wrist movement. But then when I show my students this, they do something that looks like this. It barely moves, and they think they're doing it, but they're not. You must exaggerate it. You must really exaggerate it. I mean, when I say you must, this isn't how you end up playing, but this is going to be the quickest way to tell your nervous system this is what you want from it. And then you gradually speed up. But if at any point you've got to be very, very sensitive to the tiniest, and I mean the tiniest bit of tension, anywhere from your elbow up to your upper arm, up to your shoulders. If anything starts to tense, you stop and you go slower. The enemy is tension in your upper arm, elbow, shoulder, particularly upper arm. So your goal is to flap your wrist without any tension in your arm. And this is why you want to exaggerate that motion. Because if you don't, chances are much higher that bits of tension will start creeping in. It really is just like a flat when you do this fast. So having said that, still when I am playing from bar 34, and I am going a little faster, I think, than the tempo marking, I do start to tense up. It's impossible for me to play this without a little bit of tension. But the more you can practice this very relaxed wrist staccato, it'll be possible without just so much tension that it just stops you from playing. But also, if you have tension and you're playing repeated notes, you can actually get wrist injuries as well. So if you're, and by the way, when you do this thing with your wrist, if you get any pain whatsoever, stop. Never play through pain. Never, ever, ever play through pain. Stop. And see if you can figure out, well, why are you getting pain? Where is the tension that's causing you the pain? What is the movement that's causing you the pain? And do not push through it, because you can have permanent injuries that stop you playing the piano if you push through the pain. I'm being completely serious. And they can escalate very, very quickly if you're not careful. So, something else as well is these things like that. They really have to be very, very rhythmically even. I think a lot of people are just going to be, just scratchy, but it's got to be taka 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 taka, like taka 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 taka. Now, one thing that I recommend to be able to do that is these basically moving your wrist like that. I was just saying in the last video, you've got 3 axes of movement for your wrist. You've got up and down, rotation, and lateral, left and right. This way around as well, up and down, rotate, left and right, lateral. You want to be able to have some lateral movement and also move your elbow so that when you play, it looks something like and it's going to help the evenness. So so if I show you, hopefully you've got a clear line of sight to this. Because if you keep your hand in one place and just try and use your fingers, it's so much harder. You'll get tension as well, but it's much harder to get everything sounding even. Whereas if you move your wrist, it's almost like the wrist helps to get all those notes even. Something else I recommend, I say this in what feels like almost every single video, shifting accents. So I'm going to come out with another video. Subscribe to my channel to find out when this video comes out. But shifting accents are like, let's take the opening notes, which are like a stream of semiquavers or 16th notes. And shifting accent is like... we do this in different groupings. I'll start with groups of 2. I'll start with 1. The 1 is loud, the 2 is super quiet. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to play exactly the same notes, starting with the same note, but I'm going to start with 2, where 2 is quiet, 1 is loud, which means that the notes that were quiet are now loud, and the notes that were loud are now quiet. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then I'll do it in groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, which is kind of like how they're already arranged. Then I do them in groups of 3, starting on 2, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Then I start, then groups of 3 starting on 3, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and so on and so on. Then you can do groups of 4. Starting with it on 1 is really boring, and you don't want to do that too much because that's already how it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Then we can start with it on 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Let me do that again. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, watch my other videos I'm going to be bringing out on this for a lot of the common pitfalls and mistakes that people do when they do shifting accents. But this is how you get this evenness, because imagine that, and also, by the way, I really recommend going on YouTube and listening to the original soundtrack of this. And it's very clearly a synthesizer, and the synthesizer is very clearly being quantized in a sequencer, meaning you put it into the computer and it lines up exactly. Taka, 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 taka. It's not human, it's just completely metronomic. It's like a texture. It's almost like a slot machine, like what do you call them in England? But you know, you pull the thing and you try and get the 3 cherries or whatever it is, and you get money when they line up. That kind of thing. Gambling, you know. It's very slot machine kind of sound. So almost like MIDI. Now, in terms of tempo markings. What is 155 like? Let's see. That's too slow. It's really slow for me. Whatever it is. It's so slow. What's it like 10 faster, 165? Oh. Oops. I think 165 for me is like a minimum. It's like an absolute minimum for it to come alive a little bit. It can really drag, you know, this. You know, if we're not careful. So, yeah, I think that the given tempo marking just drags and is a little bit dull. Let me try it again at that recommended tempo marking from bar 12. Yeah, it doesn't have enough energy. 165. But then it obviously becomes a lot more challenging at that speed, and you know, this is like this little bit here. Where was it? I actually make life a little bit hard for myself because I play that B at the end of bar 19 as an octave, which I think sounds much better. But that's really tricky at 165. You know, let me try and go for that again from the top of the page. Whoops. Yeah. So it's not easy. it's really not easy at all. Especially, and also at 165. This is why this wrist staccato is so important. They probably put 155 because to get much faster than that, you need good wrist staccato, which most people don't have. So that's not easy. And by the way, so yeah, you start bar 16 with the little finger, but when I play the right hand, when I play the second half of bar 16, I take that opportunity to switch to the second finger, which is much easier. So little finger, second finger. And then I'm all set up for the octave that happens at the end of the next bar. So yeah, you're going to want to practice things like bar 19, the things with the hands crossing over. And by the way, here I do it slightly differently than what they've written. So I do the B in my right hand, then I do E and F sharp with my left hand, and then back to the right hand. So the left hand only does 2 notes. So, but yeah, you're going to need a metronome, and you're just basically going to want to, let's say we start much more slowly. So something like, and I'm just going to go into the final quaver of the bar before, like this, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go from there. So like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's how I'm going to come into bar 19. And even that's a bit fast, really. So I'm going to take it even slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can gradually speed that up. 2, 3, 4. And you just do that over and over and over until you build up to the speed that you want. It's very laborious. 154. 1, 2, 3. So you just build it up like that. And then what you can do is you can add that, let's go from bar 16. And just gradually work your way back. Normally, I do not recommend working with a metronome. I'm very unusual and controversial. In classical music, I really don't like metronomes. I don't recommend them. But any style of music where you would be playing with drums, or like this where it's obviously quantized, you absolutely need a metronome because you need to be playing bang in time with something that stays bang in time. So there's absolutely use a metronome for this. The other thing that you're going to want to do is do shifting accents. Again, in bar 19, 1, 2, 1. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Whoops, doesn't do that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and until you just get this in your fingers, and it makes everything really, really even, because you don't want it's got to be taka, it's got to be taka 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 taka, whatever it is, taka 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 taka. So if you do shifting accents, you'll get that evenness. Yeah, classical musicians are not used to playing ba 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 ba. Classical music breathes, it ebbs and flows, it has tension and release. It's like ba 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 ba. So it's very, very different. Most classical people are not going to be able to play this at all well. I play electric guitar. I'm playing in a band at the moment. I'm used to playing with a drummer. It's not completely alien for me to lock in with a groove. But on the piano, it's not the kind of thing I normally do. But the thing that gives this energy is having a very, very strong pulse that's in the pocket, as people say, like really in the groove. Ba, ba. So like ba 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 ba. And if you watch me perform this in the YouTube video, my head is bobbing because I want to feel this beat in my body. I don't recommend it to people that you can just go. I mean, I think without moving, I would never be able to play this in a way that felt rhythmically satisfying. You've got to feel the groove. You've got to feel it with your body. Keep your eyes peeled for a future video that's going to come out on how we move our heads to have a good sense of rhythm. It's way too much for me to cover in this video. But basically just practice it in small chunks, because you need to look at, don't just play it from beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end, because there are certain bars that just suddenly astronomically way more difficult than the other bars. And they're the ones that you need to spend your time working on. So for example, from bar 16, and by the way, at the end of bar 37, I made life slightly more difficult for myself. I made the A an octave in the right hand because it sounded weird. If I go from the beginning of that bar, F sharp, what happened to the rest of that? Where's the A below that? And I see why they left it out the left hand. If you played the A in the left hand, you've got to suddenly get all the way down to that G, which is almost impossible. So why not put it in the right hand? So the F sharp's in the left hand, but now I'm playing an octave A in the right hand as my left hand moves down to the G. Now I've got to jump to this chord, but it's not too bad. So right hand jump up. That's not bad. So I make life a little harder for myself. But anyway, if I go from the bar before, now that whole sequence is actually quite tricky. Let me see if I can play that at 155. I may not be able to do that from cold without a build-up. 2, 3, 4. Almost. Hang on. Yeah, I mean, it's much more difficult starting from there. And if I go from a couple of bars before, yeah, but oh my God, I spent a few days doing little bits of practice on this, and you'd better believe that most of my practice time was spent doing that, not on playing the rest of it, because if you want to learn it quickly, and I am lazy, I'm fundamentally really lazy, I want to spend the least amount of time sat at the piano practicing. So because I'm lazy, I've learned over time, I have experience over time, that there are efficient ways of practicing, and so I just go and I focus on that. Again, you can't really do shifting accents in bar 36 because it's not like you don't have enough notes in a row, all of the same rhythm. But here, you could do shifting accents with that to get comfortable with that. And then that'll really help you. So other problem areas are going to be bar 44. That's really hard at speed, really hard. And also to make it even. Very, very hard. So let's see, from the beginning of that line. And then if I go at my 155, I'm going to go left hand from the bar before that. Oh, yes. Oh, God. Yeah, and I've suddenly remembered there what makes that so difficult. What makes it so difficult is jumping your left hand down to that. That is so hard. That's possibly, I think, what I found the most difficult thing in the entire piece. It's jumping down and finding those notes reliably. Let me give that another go from the same place. And then another trick that you might want to do. I don't think I talk about this enough, which is that sometimes, if we're not careful, like then, you literally saw me fall into that trap just then of going da, 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 and only in that moment, oh my God, I've got to be down there. I wasn't thinking ahead. Really, what you want to do is as soon as I'm in even the beginning of bar 44, I'm already thinking that I need those notes. So I'm already thinking I'm here. My little finger is already in the right place for them. And I'm memorizing what this feels like, so that even when I come up here, I'm ready to spring straight back to where I was, and I've kind of built a memory of that. I'm planning ahead, and not what you saw me do just then, which is like, oh my God, I need to be down there. So let me try again from like bar 42 left hand and see if I can just think ahead and anticipate those notes in the left hand. But they are tricky, really tricky. Yeah, and I was very much thinking ahead there. Let me do it again. Yeah. So, really, like when I got the number one thought in my head was like the end of the next bar, the end of the next bar. I was barely even thinking about everything else that I was playing. I was only thinking about how am I going to get down to these notes. I'm going to guess that most of you will not be able to do that because most of you are just going to get yanked compulsively to whatever it is that you have to deal with, which here is the left hand there and then it's here, then you're thinking about that and then you're like, oh, and it wasn't possible to remember to do that. Now, I do have a podcast. The podcast is Heart of the Piano. I'll leave a link in the description below. And I think it's like, I put up a series of the most important key psychological skills, the fourth one of which is to be able to choose where your awareness is in any moment in time, rather than just being compulsively yanked to this, that. And basically, this is nothing other than what meditation is. So when people meditate, it's because the mind, the thinking part of the mind, the monkey brain, as people call it, goes blah, 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 blah. And our attention goes to the blah, blah, blah. And we think that our mind is blah, 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 blah. But we can choose. I'm going to center my awareness in my breath. And as I feel what my breath feels like, there's the mind going blah, 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 blah. But no, it's just let it go, blah, 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 blah. It's not compulsively yanking my attention like it normally does. So this is something similar here so I'm going from bar 43. Normally there's like, oh my God, there's a lot to think about. But here I'm like, no, I'm thinking about the end of the next bar. Even though I've got all of this stuff to think about the left hand, I'm still thinking about going back down, and here it is. I'm planning ahead and not just being yanked away from where I intend my awareness to be. It's a massive topic, but go listen to that podcast episode. I'll leave a link in the description below. Other than that, there's really not much to this. You've just got to play the notes, really. Something I do think is, I think it sounds good when you play as staccato as you can. Rather than so if I go from bar 12, I think instead it's just a little bit more staccato, or you can do but just not, which I think isn't going to sound so good. And I guess in the right hand, you have to play a lot of it staccato. Like I'm just looking at bar 18, where you because you play the C twice, you can't play legato. But whatever it all is. But you've got this arpeggio in bar 27 because it's all in one hand. I don't think this is too difficult. But what I recommend is when you play fast arpeggios, advanced pianists do not cross the thumb underneath and make it hyper legato when playing fast, like people are taught to do sort of pre-grade 8 or up to grade 8, ABRSM and Trinity. So basically, hopefully you can see that's the way we're taught to do arpeggios usually. But advanced people playing at this kind of speed will do this. There's no point trying to cross your thumb underneath. So if I go from the beginning of that line, my thumb does sort of do this a little bit, but it's this. It's which, if I slow it down, is that. Or da 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 da. It's not da 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 da, hold on to that finger, then get your thumb there. That's not possible. So, and you want da 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 there anyway. Here, what I would do, you'll hold that in the pedal, and then do the page turn as you play that left hand. And then that page turn isn't too bad. One more thing that I did change, I seem to have been changing a lot of things recently. You don't need to change this, but in the final few bars, say I'm going from the last line. I think it doesn't sound good unless you take the right hand up an octave here. That's just a bit low energy, leaving the right hand where it is there. So just bear in mind that I took the right hand an octave up there. So absolutely do the subito piano in bar 53. I love subito piano there. So if I go from the lead into bar 51, just a few beats before that. And here you absolutely need, you cannot play that without wrist staccato. So you must learn to do wrist staccato. You can't play that if your arm is tense. You can't. You need your whole arm relaxed, flapping your wrist up and down. So no pedal there, no pedal in bar 53. Do experiment with dabs of pedal, but try not to use pedal mostly. Now, at the beginning, anywhere where you've got like that slot machine sound, use pedal. Like when I listen to the original, the official recording, Trinity recording, they do some weird things, like not use pedal on some of these flourishes. Like let's say I go from bar 16. Here, they do something like that with no pedal. And played very unevenly as well. Just stick the pedal down and make it a flourish, you know. Because also it's going to hide a little bit of your weaknesses. Like if I do from bar 43 without pedal, which I think is how the official recording goes. Are they a classical pianist? It just sounds terrible when you do that. So no pedal. With pedal. I mean, it's clearly supposed to be with pedal in my opinion. But anyway, I think that's, yeah, I don't think I really have an awful lot more to say than that. Did I finish saying this before? That to make this have energy, like really feel, and you know, it's exciting and has energy. It's got to be really, really, really in time. It can't just be, you know, you can't just be. Now, let me try and play it at exactly the same speed with really ba, 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 ba in the pockets, people say. It's much more exciting than if you just don't have a solid groove in your head. I'll try and play it faster, but sloppy. Sloppy rhythm. But if I play it a little slower and have very, very tight time, instantly it has more energy. So I think that's it from me. I do have availability for online students if you're interested. Otherwise, please do like and comment and do subscribe because I've got lots more exciting videos, not just on Trinity and ABRSM, but all kinds of really good stuff that I know people are going to enjoy. Go practice or watch more of my videos and take care and bye.